What I love about that is the ability for us to kind of utilize the mechanics of tokens to really inspire, catalyze these new products, whether that be like applications or memes or ideas or songs.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not investment, legal, or financial advice. Opinions are those of the host and guests and do not reflect any affiliated entities. Investing involves risk, and past performance is not indicative of future results. The host and guests may hold positions in discussed securities. Now, please enjoy the show. Winnie, thank you so much for joining me today. Super excited to chat with you. All right, Winnie, you are the co-founder and a partner at Strobe Ventures, which is a crypto-focused venture firm. You guys manage over 200 million in AUM and have made over 25 investments across basically every sector of crypto. Previously, you were an investor at Block Tower Capital. So, Winnie, we've known each other for a very long time, and you've been around for a very long time within the space. How does Strobe come to be? Because I know you were at Block Tower and then now Strobe. Can you tell me about that? Well, you can tell me about that kind of transition.
Yeah. No, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to finally be able to do this. So earlier this year, I was at a firm called Block Tower Capital for 3.5 years. But earlier this year, my partners and I, the three of us collectively ran the venture vehicle at Block Tower. We essentially spun out and started a new firm called Strobe, which we're very excited about. And how I think of Strobe is like a new type of on-chain investment firm that invests in founders that are replatforming industries and doing that on crypto rails. And the three of us have been investing and deploying this Block Tower vehicle. And because of a number of reasons, Block Tower is going through a merger. And as part of that, we were decided to spin out our vehicle. And essentially, we got the blessing of our LPs, some of which include Texas Teachers, BPI France, and a few other large institutions. And they were all very supportive of the three of us kind of spinning out and starting our own thing. So here we are. We launched officially early January of 2025 and have been in business. And in the last 2-3 months, we've invested in 3 companies, of which we led 2. So very excited and actively deploying out of this fund.
That's awesome. Very cool. And the name Strobe, what is that from?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually so hard to come up with a name. I don't know how you guys came up with.
I mean, our name is super weird, so.
It is. We honestly, it's I would say, given the number of investment firms and vehicles out there, everything is taken. We essentially were going down lists of things that were related to ideas, innovation, but also one word English words that really, could be patented and we could actually get a patent for. And there are very few. So Strobe was one of the few. We also tried a few. That one that I liked a lot was covalence. Ooh. We almost called that because covalent bonds are some of the strongest bonds and ideas every atom together is awesome, but together some of its parts are greater together. So I like the idea of covalence, but there was a biotech firm that had billions of AUM that
of course
they marked it. And then yeah.
That's very cool. Okay. All right. So I mean, within crypto, I mean, you already know this, but there's tons of different sectors or subsectors. There's AI, consumer, DeFi, gaming, infra, et cetera, et cetera. How do you guys approach investing within these different subsectors? Does one of your partners take on these 4 subsectors and you take on these couple, or
yeah?
And is there an overarching kind of philosophy around just the crypto space, just approaching it in general? Or how do you approach this as a total whole?
Yeah, I feel for us, we are a very small team. So our entire firm is 3 of us, and we have one COO, CFO, jack of all trades that handles a lot of our operations. So between the 3 of us, you end up kind of seeing everything, but we do have lanes where we spend a lot more time in. And that for me, that happens to be a lot of consumer things. I did come from a more consumer venture firm kind of background. So it kind of felt right. And some of the things I'm more interested in, and you and I talk a lot about, is what are new primitives that consumers and new behaviors that consumers do and how to explore that. So for me, that's interacting a lot with applications and things on that layer, playing with the latest on-chain games, and just kind of being the first 100 players of any single app. So that's kind of where I spend the most time, tinkering around with. But I also do a lot of DeFi. My partner Steven does a lot of infrastructure as well. So it's a little bit of everything, but we do have specific lanes.
Yeah. So within the consumer lens, that there's a lot to unpack there. Is there an area that you're specifically excited about, most recently around the consumer crypto area, or what are you looking at?
So many, I feel for us, I mean, last year was Tail end of last year there's this hype obviously around kind of the meme coin frenzy and pump. And I think what that taught us and showed us was like capital formation in crypto is one of the few product market fits, and speculation is one of the few product market fits. And while a lot of people kind of roll their eyes on kind of like what meme coins were, what I love about that is the ability for us to kind of utilize the mechanics of tokens to really inspire, catalyze these new products, whether that be like applications or memes or ideas or songs. So I've recently been really obsessed with the idea of like, how can we leverage the dynamics and mechanics of meme coins, and kind of evolve it into like what I'm calling like V2 of this kind of launchpad era. And I think now we're seeing a lot more launchpad emerge, similar to kind of pump was like V1. This would be like kind of pump, but for other types of products. We're seeing a lot in the prompt to app space or prompt to game space, a lot in the fashion space. We actually invested in one that was leveraging token mechanics to basically create real world products. So they work with manufacturers in all over the world, and they actually essentially then produce the physical goods that then people kind of speculate on. So like the idea is like, instead of having memes get borne out, if the bonding curve gets hit, you can kind of get a shoe or get a piece of puffer clothing or like a phone case or something like that. So I've been thinking a lot about kind of that tokenization of everything.
It's funny because I feel like it's almost like the original NFT vision, like what you're talking about now. And also, I don't know, I'm still obviously ultra bullish on NFTs, of course, but meme coins took over in such a way because like the time to ape, quote unquote, is shortened, because it's like, okay, a lot of people within the NFT ecosystem, they were looking for, oh, I love this art, I want to play this game, I want to collect this, this collectible or whatever. But then there's also a huge portion that we're just wanting to speculate. And in order to speculate effectively, you needed to have like an understanding of this art or this game or whatever. You need to do some homework. Versus a meme coin, it's like, oh, cute panda in the zoo was born. Like, okay, let's just ape on that. So the time to ape is much shorter, and the speculation, like the speculative dopamine that you get from that, is just more effective. But so I guess what are your thoughts around this tokenization of everything, when like the big driver currently, and I think that will evolve definitely over time, but is still currently speculation. So how do you see that changing?
Yeah, I do think it is already evolving. I mean, during the depths of the bear market, people were minting a ton of NFTs, but they were all like open editions, right? Like I was minting a ton, none of which were, to speculate on. So I do think there is a whole behavior shift around being able to kind of tokenize everything. And as of today, Zora kind of reduced its limit for kind of the initial market cap for things that you put on chain to like $22 versus, I forget what it was, but it was like a dramatically less market cap. I think we're going to see a lot more instances of that, but it takes like maybe 1 in a million for that to kind of break down to hit like the billions for people to kind of understand the value of that. So yeah, I do think the behavior is changing. For me, like what's exciting about the dynamics of meme coins versus NFTs, and I do think there's a world where the two of them kind of converge back again, is like with something that's more fungible, it's easier for you to participate in a way that NFTs were harder, because there was more like, characteristics associated with the non-fungible aspect of it. So I think even for the Dripster, which is the company I was talking about that does the real world commerce part, what I described was something that was so perfect for NFTs like 3 years ago, but it makes sense to use, something that's more fungible today because it's easier for people to kind of participate in, and they can kind of sell parts of it at a time. So yeah, I don't know. I think we're all still experimenting around that. We're seeing a lot, and that's kind of the design space that I'm like really obsessed with now. There's a lot more for apps. There's O'Hara, and Dev Fun on the Solana side, where people are building the same kind of like prompt to app for games and for different new products.
Very cool. And we've spoken a lot about digital companions.
Yes.
I am like unbelievably bullish. I think that, I mean, AI companions, I've said before, I think are going to be the most impactful technology over the next couple of years, because it's like your coach, your therapist, your friend, your lover, your partner, whatever, are going to be, in your pocket. And, and these things are going to evolve and be designed and program themselves, or, be programmed by the devs in order to be very likable. Yep. And they're going to have huge influence over us. Cause if you give me a recommendation, I'm like, oh, Winnie's my friend, I believe that recommendation. Yeah. Versus like, if I read some stranger's post online, I'm like, I don't really know about that recommendation. But this person, this entity,
I know you so well. Yeah.
Knows me well and is going to be my friend. So I'm going to listen to them like crazy.
So tell
Yeah.
me like how you've been thinking about digital companions, and also I guess touch upon, we did touch upon briefly about like the taboo of having AI
Yeah.
friends. It's like kind of weird now and kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, unusual, but yeah, let's talk about that.
I love the way you phrase that as like AI companions versus like, or digital companions versus like AI boyfriend, girlfriend. I think the space gets a really bad rep because the media and the world often sensationalize like the worst case outcomes, like the character AI instance where someone committed suicide because they fell in love with their companion. But the truth is, and like the way I like to think about new consumer apps is like, look at how Gen Z and Gen Alpha specifically behave and how they interact with technology. And that's kind of where the world's shifting. They are the future. You can invest for like the millennial, like ourselves and kind of how we think, right? And my brother, I'm very fortunate because my brother is squarely in like the Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and I love to like observe him and his friends and how they interact. It's so different, and the world's just changing. Like AI is a core part of kind of how they interact. Think about just like all of our friends and people we know who use ChatGPT for just therapy. They know you. Your ChatGPT probably knows more about you than some of your friends because you're able to be so raw and unfiltered, even more than an actual real therapist. So if you just take that lens when you think about how AI companions can be an evolution, a more personalized version of a therapist, and you could like prompt it to like act a certain way. Like, please, for me, I hate mindfulness. I'm not a very, let's meditate on this kind of person. I like action. I'm like, give me action items on how to resolve this crisis, this situation, right? So like having an AI companion that is able to do that is super interesting. So why I think it's misunderstood is because people think it's like this world where people will stop, having babies and civilization will end and humankind will end because everyone's dating a robot. But the truth is there's going to be a companion complementary to your partner. And even if you're in a very happy marriage, which I am, like I still see a world where you can have a companion that is there for you to, offload a lot of mental tasks and be able to like order DoorDash for you, people to like get you gifts for certain things because they know whose birthday it is, they know what's top of mind for you because you're chatting with it. So I kind of see companions evolving this model where they're like almost like a PA, personal assistant, and like a therapist, coach, someone you kind of chat with. And the other big thing that I think people are starting to change is like, I think voice with AI is getting so good now, right? That with kind of this AI companion space, having a distinct voice that you can like chat with on your way to work or walking or on a run, that's going to be a huge unlock, especially as you think about all the in-between moments during commutes or during your day that you can kind of talk to it.
So I want to touch base on the kind of the girlfriend boyfriend aspects, because I do think from a monetization standpoint, the companies out there that are in the AI companion space that are performing quite well in terms of revenue, they're all, if you dig deep, like it's all like not safe.
It's all like on this, yeah.
So yeah, do you have any specific thoughts around that? And kind of, I want to hear.
I think it's like if you think about AI boyfriend girlfriends for like not safe for work stuff, vices, porn, and these types of apps always lead the charge for any new innovation. And what it's proving out is that there's like new payment rails being built with AI agents that are now getting gifts for their partners online. And I love that. And that like is proving out agents can transact on stablecoin rails and can interact with things in the real world. There's a company called Nectar that I really like that basically you can have your agent talk to it in a very like kawaii or like an anime type way. And they can order Amazon for you as a gift or order things from the store. So I think what's cool is like seeing how those types of AI boyfriend girlfriends kind of tests the parameters of technology and show you what can be done. And that kind of opens the design space for other things. In terms of like the more ethical, moral, like I think everyone's life, like they can live it however they want. But what I am excited about is actually the rise of AI boyfriends. I think for a while, it's mostly AI girlfriends. It's like hypersexualized, like anime characters or like women, right? And that's for like, these men, people often think they're like lonely, like teenagers or people who are like have no life. But I actually think there's going to be a rise in women who actually want that companionship because the world is getting lonelier. And I think there's a lot more apps that are targeting the females as a user base. And then it's like guys who are able to, satisfy their emotional needs in a way that a lot of, men may not be mature enough to do. So I'm a big fan. I think it's not going to replace a physical companion, I don't think, but I do think it's a good, supplement and something that people can play around with. I also think there's a lot of apps. There's a company called Dipsy, which is I don't know if you are familiar with it. It's a consumer kind of erotic fan fiction app. Something like Dipsy. There's also what's the other fan fiction, Wattpad, right? Those types of Web 2 platforms show that like fan fiction is alive, and this is just the next evolution of it. It's a more interactive version of it, and I think that's kind of where we're going in entertainment overall. Like podcasts, like you and I talking today, is very one-dimensional for listeners, but I think in the future there will be moments where they'll pause the podcast and interact with it, and then they'll probably have an LM prompt them how like Andrew and Winnie would respond to their question or have it explain more. So I do think entertainment in general is getting more like interactive. So it's only a matter of fact that like porn and all these become a bit more interactive with this. Just because there's porn doesn't mean people are not with their partners, right?
Totally. So, and also from a societal standpoint, if you tell someone who's 50, hey, there's kids right now dating, their AI companions, like they'll panic, they're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But, if you also told someone who is, I don't know, 100, like, hey, people are going to meet online, like that would be outrageous. It would be like, people are meeting online, like that's so dangerous. It's so sketchy. Like they're strangers, like, who knows what could happen. And I'm not saying like we should all be, having AI boyfriends and girlfriends. I'm just saying from a societal standpoint, it's one of those things that's very weird today. In like 10, 20 years, maybe it's gonna be super normal. So as you mentioned, there's tons of kind of emotional and psychological benefits of having that non-judging character that you can kind of interact with, it that can hopefully help you.
Even like on that topic, like I don't know, like in the 70s, 80s, people were probably using magazines, right, to do their business, right? And then that's evolved to point, like that was kind of crazy. That was the next step function evolution. And now maybe this is the next step function evolution. And like you said, like dating, I would say like 15 years ago, if you met online, people were like, that's so sketchy.
Totally.
But now if you're at a bar and someone comes up to you and they try to get, that's so sketchy.
Yeah.
Like I haven't been able to pre-vet you. I haven't been able to like check out your entire profile, who you're, like where you work, right? Like it's just like, it takes time. And with any big change, I find that a lot of people are very hesitant to change and adapt to the times because they're like very stuck in their ways. And it, like I said, that's why it's so important. I feel like as consumer investors, which I feel like you do a really good job of, is like in figuring out what young people do. And I love to like look on the comment section of TikToks and like in super like Reddit threads to kind of see how kind of Gen Alpha thinks. And so if you look at a lot of these like AI boyfriend, girlfriend videos on TikTok, the comment sections are so insightful because they're like, wow, like I talked to my AI girlfriend like 10 hours a day, everything about me. And that's exactly where like 16-year-olds are doing. So you have to build for them.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think it's, you're absolutely correct. Like the younger crowd is what kind of sets up the behaviors of the future. And yeah, digging into these forums and digging into these comment sections is super insightful. And I do feel like though, we're losing kind of spots for the Gen Alphas. I mean, I don't really know where the Gen Alphas hang online necessarily, but like, I feel like Reddit is a bit for, I don't know, it's getting too boomerish in some sense, right? It's like the young kids don't go on Reddit. Like I have a sister who's, I think she's 21 now, which is crazy. But, and like, I always ping her. I'm like, hey, like what's going on? And she's like, oh my God, like, you're always bothering me on, XYZ. But like, she doesn't go on Reddit, but like, I know there are kids at her age that do, but where do you think that the sources of these online conversations are happening? Cause did most of it get privatized over the past few years? Cause I feel like our generation was very public with Facebook and you could friend anyone and everything was open. And as we progressed and the younger kids, grew up, they're now going in these private channels where it's all like, your direct friend group.
That's so funny. You and I should share notes because I have a little brother who's like 19 and I ping him the same questions, but I want a little sister to ask that.
Yeah.
So like,
there we go. Alpha.
We need to put them together in a little chat and they can be our alpha. And they're both in college. So like, that's like prime like breeding grounds for new apps and technology. He's on Discord a ton. One time we had a conversation about like what his ideal day looks like. He's like to spend like 3-4 hours on Discord just talking to his friends. Like that's like what happiness, and he's a very social kid. He's not an introvert or anything. But I don't know where the girly pops hang out. That's a good question. I think
we need to do some research.
do some research. I think TikTok is truly kind of where they are right now, but I don't know if it's like there's a more like private channel that they go to, but I imagine a lot of them are posting more authentically on TikTok and they're sharing a lot of views. And that's kind of the beautiful part of like TikTok. It's like, it's very much like not with your friends. You have a feed that's like everyone else and you have this little community. So I think that's where I would guess they are.
All right, switching gears here. We've touched upon kind of USA and China and their approach to technology. I think we were talking about DeepSeek and we're talking about humanoids and all sorts of different stuff. But just broadly speaking, and I believe that didn't you grow up in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I grew up. I'm from Hong Kong, but I actually grew up in mainland China. I was there from 2004 to 2012,
Wow,
which
okay.
I always think about as like a very pivotal time to be. As like my most formative years, like fourth grade to like senior year of college, and it was also around the time when WeChat was born, Taobao was born. I used Weibo before I used Twitter. I used Youku before I used YouTube. Like I used all the Chinese version, and I was like always very envious of like American internet because we had this firewall that blocked us from using it. But yeah, I grew up in China during that era, which is crazy to see that growth.
All right, so from a consumer lens, I feel like China does an incredible job at taking what exists in the States or in the West broadly,
Yeah.
and they transform and make it 10x better. Like I don't know, Pinduoduo is like something that is so innovative.
Yes.
It's like we'll do shopping, but we'll gamify it to make it more fun and team based and social and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. So like how do you view the current era or the current crop, we'll call it, of these Chinese social applications or consumer applications compared to like their US or Western counterparts?
Yeah. I will say it wasn't always like this, right? Like I said, I grew up with Chinese internet and I was very envious of kind of US tech and Silicon Valley. And that was a large part of why I chose to move to the Bay Area for college. And honestly, what I wrote a lot of my college apps on was like Chinese tech. But now it's like we're at this almost like flippening where it's the first time we've seen like tech and culture export from China to the US with ByteDance and TikTok. And then now we're seeing that with Lemonade, which is like the equivalent of Pinduoduo, but they have and Xiaohongshu, which is Red Note. And they kind of, people are using that in the US. So I think of to take a step back, why that is happening is a combination of like 2-3 things. One is China completely skipped laptops and like the desktop era. They jumped straight to mobile. And I think that's quite pivotal because by jumping straight to mobile, they figured out payments with like Alipay and WeChat Pay way before the US figured out like mobile payments as well. With China now, with mobile payments really taking off and smartphones, everyone has smartphones. That's truly why people and these apps have been able to take off in China. And the other big thing is like everything is like 2-3 closed ecosystems, whereas in the US, every single feature that you see is like a billion-dollar company. Like Venmo is integrated into like, in China, it's integrated into your WhatsApp, it's integrated to your DoorDash, it's all part of one ecosystem. And that just wouldn't exist in the US. Like Facebook tried to do it multiple times because of like regulatory issues. It doesn't exist, which is why I'm excited about like crypto, because crypto enables you to build all these different primitives and kind of have it still work in a more open ecosystem. But China's been able to achieve it in a closed ecosystem. So like taking a step back, that's kind of why Chinese tech in the last 10 years, I believe, have been able to really be, kind of better in some ways than some US technology. In terms of kind of where I see this going, I think with what TikTok has shown us, there's going to be a lot more similar social experiences that kind of marry commerce along with kind of live shopping, along with kind of new entertainment and payments kind of combined. And it's just very hard in the US, I think, for that to really, happen with these large social media organizations and any new incumbents. So like, I think it's important. I mean, that's kind of why we're also bullish about like on-chain social platforms and stuff like Farcaster and Lens, because I do think it's like the chance for another entrant in the market that's able to kind of achieve that.
And also, I mean, I this is like me hearing this and my observations. I don't know if it's accurate, but I don't think that they copyright. Like in some sense, China is more capitalistic than America. Like I don't think copyright is really taken into account with a lot of apps. So it's like if you build a great app or a great anything, it'll be copied 500 times in the domestic market of China, and it becomes hyper an incredible product within China before being released to kind of abroad. So I guess a great example of that is probably DeepSeek, where it's like we had ChatGPT, people like it, people love it, and then DeepSeek comes out and it essentially makes like a better ChatGPT. What are your thoughts around kind of basically what I'm asking is I feel like this is controversial. Is copyright still a very useful tool in the world of tech? Like, should the U.S. abandon copyright?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm qualified to speak on that, but
we're having fun.
like, I think, I mean, if you look at DeepSeek, it's way better at English than an American-based LLM, which is crazy, right? Like, it's a Chinese company, and the reason why is like they don't give a F about kind of all these copyright issues, that they're able to kind of train itself on all the data that I don't think an Anthropic or an OpenAI would do, or like they get kind of sued and there's already precedent for that. I think that's kind of where crypto comes in for specific sectors. And we have begun to see hyper niche type of models being built for specific interfaces, whether that be for like cooking or whether that be for like it's some type of entertainment. And what the crypto piece is they use decentralized models to kind of train it. And by doing that, the data is then, I don't know if it's copyright, but you're basically harnessing kind of hundreds of thousands of people's, browsers to kind of train it versus having a centralized entity to train it, which would then be illegal. Whereas like with a lot of people train it and kind of feed information, you're able to then kind of get past some of those issues. I don't know. It's definitely like a more gray area. I'm curious what your take is on that.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think copyright, it's been super useful for a lot of folks, and I think it does apply to certain sectors. But then you can't have like copyright in one sector and not in another sector. So I get that it's a slippery slope. But I mean, it's hard to argue about the results in China, both from a technology standpoint and just from a hardware manufacturing standpoint. Like they'll take right now, I think that they're trying to recreate the lithography machines that are the ASML, with their incredibly advanced lithography machines that are help make semiconductors.
Yeah,
kind of recreating that entire stack in house. And if they're able to do it, then that is a massive breakthrough.
Yeah,
and I think it's because no one's been able to recreate these machines. And I think it'd be a good for the world if there's more than one player who can do this. And I think it'd be positive. And they did it because they don't care about copyright. So I don't know. It's a slippery slope. I don't think I'm qualified either. Now that the spotlight's on me, I'm like, I don't know.
I think it's net better for competition and tech and innovation, which is what I care about. So I do think like even just like cars, right? Like I think China has always lagged in cars and electric vehicles, but in the last like 5 years, when I go home, my parents have, traditionally they've driven like Western or European cars. Now they never drive those cars, and they only touch like their BYD car or their car called Li Xiang, which is the super advanced electric vehicle where it's plugged into an LLM. It's so smart. You sit in the back seat on the left. You can kind of use your voice to control everything from not just the temperature, but massages and your entertainment panel, and you use your hand gestures. It's just like operating at such a different capacity than even like a Tesla or like a Rivian in the US.
That's crazy. So my dad, he lives in Dubai. He's the biggest Trump guy of all time, which means he's like a huge fan of Elon and Tesla. And he called me earlier this year, I think in like January. He's like, man, you got to get out here. Like BYD is dominating. Like they're taking up so much market share. Like it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, everything I've heard about BYD is just absolutely incredible.
Banned in the US.
Yeah. And because they would dominate, they would win, too much. And so anyways, it's a whole nother slippery slope we could go on there. But to go back on kind of the crypto angle, crypto and AI, I feel like a lot of people have talked about that. I think there are certain segments that make a ton of sense, but the way that I've seen people talk about it is like, well, of course, agents are going to transact in crypto, which I do agree with. I'm like, of course, agents will transact in crypto, but they'll also transact with a bank account. Like if if agents become as smart as we think they're going to be, they're going to be able to use credit cards, bank accounts, like totally normal. So I guess I'm more excited by other use cases like incentivizing people with decentralized training, or providing GPU compute to a decentralized network, because using like US dollars to send to someone in like Japan would be really hard, and sending the tokens way easier. So like things of that nature. What are your thoughts around crypto and AI?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think as a firm, we haven't invested in crypto and AI in the last 2 years when it was really going parabolical, because we're firm believers of like invest in what you know, and really if you don't have a right to win, I don't think, like, why are we seeing the deal? So for a lot of crypto AI things that came to our desks, we ended up not really getting there because we didn't feel like we were the most qualified or the best to kind of support those companies. But more recently, I will say that tide is kind of shifting, and there's a lot more AI and crypto-enabled apps that I think are more interesting, kind of to what you're touching on. And there's a new layer around where you can help these agents better interact on chain. I think that's going to be a pretty critical piece. We invest in this company called the non.com. A few years ago, we invested in the pre-seed, and we recently did a round with USV and Forerunner, but essentially they are the authentication layer to help a lot of these agents interact with normal consumer apps, like say like a DoorDash or an Uber. So I think that layer, that middleware layer, is quite interesting. And then on the apps layer, I think it's kind of like, how can you use the novel crypto mechanics and pair it with AI, sorry. And then how can you build interesting things in like social, finance, health, and utilize kind of the AI, but using crypto to bootstrap supply or bootstrap capital formation or have faster transactions. I think that's the new kind of Venn diagram where it does make a lot more sense.
One of the things I've been thinking about is kind of the slower than I would prefer adoption of kind of crypto consumer products broadly. And I think, and there's a lot of reasons as to why that could be. But one of the things I've been thinking about is, okay, once we get stablecoin wallets in every single device and every single phone and whatnot, just using and accessing these Web3 products is going to be so seamless. Like, it's not going to need a wallet. You're not going to need MetaMask or Phantom or whatever. It's going to be super, super seamless. And at that point, we're going to have truly kind of the vision that we talk about, where it's like one consumer app in the States or in China or in Japan will actually be global, because the financial rails are global due to crypto. But what do you think that we could have a massive breakout consumer product within crypto before that, or is that kind of the broad requirement to have that, like, I'm talking like billion plus users onto a?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what that means. Like, I would say Polymarket's a good example of something that is a breakout consumer product, right? Like the fact that Polymarket called the election last year, and that there are a ton of people who reference Polymarket and still use Polymarket, and it's completely built on crypto rails and on Polygon, actually, is a good example of that. But in order for it to be more interoperable and kind of the vision that we're seeing, I think we just need to think beyond crypto Twitter. And that's kind of like our thesis, is like, we actually don't focus that much. Like you and I, we love CT, we love crypto Twitter, but I actually try to invest outside of that, because until we have applications that people are obsessed with outside our little world of the internet, it's not really going to work. So I think it's, the problem that I see a lot of there's a spectrum, right? I think consumer crypto companies fall into one spectrum where they're targeting crypto Twitter, which has high willingness to pay, and you're able to build a decent and big business by targeting less users, but charging them much more because they have all this magic internet money. And then there's like this other end of the spectrum where you have companies that are targeting completely like mainstream users, but so extremely big TAM, but they have a much lower willingness to pay and experiment and just transact on chain. So I think we need to focus. I think both ends can be big outcomes, but like increasingly I've been trying to focus on the other end, and kind of like anything in between I'm actually quite bearish on, because I've never found like those companies to be that successful. The people who try to cater towards both.
Totally true. So one concern that I've been having, so I was just at Digital Asset Summit, and I think it was, I don't know, last month or something like that. And I was, great conference. I had a blast meeting everyone. But one of the things that made me concerned was, I was like, oh my gosh, I think TradFi could end up being the ultimate winner here, especially like in the DeFi realm. But we're talking about crypto consumer, so I'm departing from that for a second. But in the realm of kind of decentralized finance and a lot of this infrastructure, I'm like, man, is the biggest crypto application and winner going to end up being like Venmo or like JP Morgan? Because they're just going to plug into all these different applications and they have the distribution already. And it's funny because like maybe, but I don't know. Just I was just hoping that there would be a lot of crypto natives that would rise up and kind of become the new JPM, become the new Venmo. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, that's a good point. I think one of the things we talk a lot about internally is what we call replatforming industries. And what we mean by that, and within that, there's subcategories, one of which is replatforming Wall Street, replatforming commerce, replatforming like art, right? And I do think it's the convergence of the two, but I do think it's a world where you need to work with TradFi in order to have big outcomes. And then maybe it's slowly kind of like a DeFi mullet, it powering TradFi. But at the end of the day, you need the distribution and they kind of already have that. So I don't know if it's a bad thing, right? Like I actually love that large fintech companies like Robinhood, I love that these large, institutions are coming in. And if they plug into, protocols like Morpho, which is one of a company that we love a lot, I would think that's a win for us.
Yeah, I guess my fear was like, man, am I going to be using, JPM still? And, a transfer of funds is still going to cost me like $10 or whatever. I was just like, man, are they just going to like use the technology in the back end and still not change the user experience from like a cost standpoint?
My biggest fear is that, but we're going to recreate that all on chain. My biggest fear is that we're going to have 10 million thousand chains, all these wallets, and then every single person is going to take their little fee on top.
It's going to end up costing the same.
Yeah, we're actually going to be transacting on DeFi, but it's going to, recreate the inefficiencies and the cost of TradFi. So like, I don't know, that's a big, overall kind of thing that does keep me up all night. Like, are we just recreating the lack of transparency in the prices of TradFi because everyone needs to eventually, make fees and like kind of generate fees.
Totally. All right. I want to switch gears here more to kind of the venture process that you guys operate. So what is your primary way of sourcing deals? Are you just kind of in the trenches, in the Discords, Telegrams, and Twitter channels talking to folks, or is it through existing portfolio founders that they're sending you deal flow, or how are you sourcing your deals?
Yeah, I think being as like chronically online and on chain as possible is kind of what I realize helps me win the most. And I think that means not only, testing every single app. Like my friends love to call me like a kind of walking product hunt, because if there's like an app with 10 users, I'm probably the first 10. Like I will download and try everything. And my whole thing is like I like to just get my first name like on every single app. So I think it's being very online on chain and being able to be the first customer and user of that and just seeing what's out there. I think the second thing to kind of what we were talking about earlier, and that I don't think that many investors do, is like go on the Reddit threads and talk to people, go to the Facebook marketplaces. Like we're actually looking at a company right now, and it's a pretty niche company that is basically trying to tokenize some asset. And I'm deep into Facebook groups and have joined over 15 Facebook groups and most of which are like 50-year-old men. And I'm just like DMing them on Facebook, asking for time to chat about kind of how they see this new technology. And I think that is probably like the level that you need to kind of get to kind of understand for consumer investing, in my opinion. So like, I think when you talk about, infrastructure is completely different, but for pure consumer, that's kind of where I find that you get the most alpha and you can kind of see how people think and what works, what's something that we wish should exist, but people don't actually need or they're not ready for yet.
When you guys are looking at a company, how much do you weight, product versus market versus founder?
Yeah, I curious to what you say, but in the last like 4 years, I've learned that founder and have an obsessive founder is literally the only thing that matters. And when we think about some of the best performers in our portfolio, it's always founders who are so deeply obsessed about a problem space. They've likely worked, their entire life in this, and they've been tinkering with this, and they don't even need to be crypto native, and they actually come to crypto to solve that problem. And those are the founders that we find do the best in our portfolio. So I would say like 80% is the founder, And to that, like one thing that we look at a lot, especially in kind of choppy markets like this, and especially in like the depths of the bear market, is like not like a lot of people can succeed when things are going right, and everything is going up, right? But it's like, how can this founder inspire, recruit, hire, and maintain kind of and help maintain their team in like extreme volatile conditions? That's kind of like what we look for. So I think just finding the right founders, spending a lot of time with them in person. I think Zoom and COVID kind of ruined that. So I think for me, like it's kind of flying to the place, meeting a lot of founders, spending a lot of time with them in person that helps us get there.
Yeah, I think that that makes total sense. I think early on, I was 50% market, 50% founder. But then, if you just like look at the data and look at who's been the most successful, it's just those founders that are, we call them like killers. It's like they will stop at nothing to accomplish X, Y, Z. But the logic part of my brain is still like, no, like the market still matters so much. But in reality, when looking at this is also for seed, so maybe it's different for further on. But yeah, I think it's it's like, I'd say it's like 90% founder. So I agree.
And like, I actually like when founders, it's like also how quickly can they navigate the idea maze and figure out when things aren't working. Because so many times I look back on our memo and what we invested for, the product or market section, isn't even what is working, right? It's like, can they see signs? Are they self-aware enough to know that the original idea actually is just kind of, they're the only one obsessed with it, and then they are, seeing what customers are saying, what the market is saying, and kind of pivoting well to that. So that's kind of what we try to test for. We actually do this personality test as the last part of our diligence process, and we basically make all our founders take it. It basically is just like you rearrange words that mean that you believe that you identify with, and based on the words, it creates like dots on these 4 or 5 categories, and it buckets you into certain personalities. And we use that to inform a lot of kind of how we believe the founder will, make decisions and how they would execute on like build a team, or how they are willing to kind of go outside the box. And that I find is actually much more telling than kind of just normally like how you would just meet them on Zoom.
That's amazing. That's awesome. All right. So can you tell me, and I probably know the answer already, but what defines your edge in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's kind of being, like I said earlier, just being as online as possible, being the number one users and actually downloading the app. You'd be shocked at how many founders are like, wow, thanks for like trying the product. Thanks for, using it. Thanks for being, a lot of people are like scared to create. Like you're a creator, you have a podcast. It's just like using the product, putting yourself into the target demographic. Even if you don't do that, you don't like that, trying it and seeing how users behave and being open-minded about that is probably where I think my right to win is.
How do you view equity versus tokens? Because, there's some investors out there that are more, kind of 95+% token focused. Some are equity only. Some do a mixture. How do you view that?
We love equity. I love equity. And our portfolio is, I would say, is quite split in the middle between equity and token, but we're probably the most equity loving firm, crypto native firm out there. And I say that with some of our earliest winners obviously being token winners, right? With like Athena, Morpho, and some other DeFi protocols. But I personally, believe in a world where every single large company, whether that be like a Shopify, whether that be Robinhood, fintech company, I think there will be big crypto outcomes in each of that. Stripe and Bridge showed us what was possible. I want to see more of that in our portfolio. And that's kind of what excites me, is like, how can we get, large companies building more on crypto rails? I think Airbnb should be built on stablecoin rails with kind of how much they pay in kind of fees, marketplace fees, with a global, like buyers and renters and tenants. What's the people who rent and people who host? Yeah, globally. So I think all of these traditional companies will want a crypto play, and I think there could be big equity outcomes and all of that. But I say that because a lot of crypto VCs they have a shorter fund life cycle. Like, we're very lucky; we have a very long time horizon. Our LPs are more like institutions, endowments, and they are very like, they understand the long time horizon for it. So for us, it's important in terms of portfolio construction to have like 50% tokens and the rest are equity.
Very cool. All right. So I think you're like a team of 4 right now, but as you guys progress, how do you think about building out your team? Or I guess in terms of your partners, what do you think what kind of traits are you looking for, whether you're recruiting new people or whether it's existing partners? How do you want that team to be built and operate?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've experimented with different permutations of team sizes, and we find that as a team of 3 and smaller team, we're able to sprint a lot faster, be a lot more nimble, and see still be experts in the areas that we kind of see and really figure out those lanes. So we're a big fan of like keeping it small, like 3 people, 4 people max on the investment team, even as we have more funds. What I would say we would like to build out more expertise in is like maybe having in the future, like more people for research or more people like a labs code where we can incubate new ideas. This is like all maybe like 5-10 years down the line, but that's kind of what excites me. But for me, like, I don't think it's like kind of there's like, when people add more screens to their setup, I don't think it actually improves their productivity. I actually don't think adding team members, I think to some point, like it doesn't improve your sourcing or reach. It actually adds more the process becomes a lot more annoying. You have a lot more syncs, right? So I don't know. I like a small, nimble team.
That's awesome. Okay. So in terms of the operational aspects of running the fund, if you could wave a magic wand and improve one aspect, but it'd be like the audit process, the tax process, the fund administration process, what would you magically fix?
I mean, I'm less involved with the fund admin ops, but it does seem like a huge burden and takes up so much time. I would say like 40% of people's time, like our team's time. So I think that would probably be where we would automate, and I would love like AI to do a better job for that. But the realities of running a liquid book is like you need a more like, you need an ops team to kind of really do that. So I think that would be the part where if I could wait a magic wand, that would be where I'd try to fix first.
All right, 10 years out, you're on the podcast again. Where is Strobe?
Wow. I think we are a truly on-chain firm with multiple strategies. We're like doing very esoteric things. We have like a moonshot fund strategy where we invest in like weird things. We're incubating new ideas. We are power users of the products we back. So our entire stack is portfolio companies that we've either invested or other portfolio companies in the space. So like we're trading with our own software. We're like, publishing and using social products that we've backed. But yeah, like I think that's kind of how I would love to think of Strobe in 10 years.
Amazing. All right. So if you had to only focus on a specific subsector for the next 12 months within crypto, we talked about like AI and DePIN and all these different subsectors. What would that subsector be for 12 months?
I would say mini apps on Farcaster.
Interesting. Tell me more.
I don't know. I think the Farcaster ecosystem is still quite slept on. Like it has its moments, ups and downs. But if you're actively spending a lot of time there, I do think some of the more the developers and the people who spend time there are always at the forefront and testing and experimenting. And they're always, trying new things. Everyone's down to be early users of a new idea. And I do think something will be born out of that ecosystem and not from the Merkle team itself. So I do think this year, maybe the next year, we're going to see a client on Farcaster that will be bigger than Warpcast itself. I think that there will be, more tools that will come out of the Farcaster ecosystem that can be applied elsewhere for like on-chain creators or on-chain organizations. But I do think mini apps are like the early breeding ground for a lot of experimentation there, and that will then turn into products that can be a venture scale.
Very cool. All right. So I thought that the fun-friendly use cases of like consumer, whether it be art or gaming or collectibles, that's how crypto would be adopted by the masses. And now I'm like, actually, it doesn't actually make a lot of sense because the infrastructure is not, we don't have like ubiquitous wallets on our phones and whatnot. And so now I'm like, okay, I think it's going to be like a Venmo or some kind of simple payments app that's kind of creates the mass adoption moment. What pathway do you believe we're going to get crypto mass adoption or some product that's mass adopted by, 1 billion plus people first?
I think it's something entertainment focused. I think the TikTok For You page was the last big like social new like way of interacting. I think we're overdue for a new type of entertainment, whether that be, I don't know what that looks like yet, whether that be kind of what I mentioned with like more interactive podcasts, things related to voice, more interactive entertainment where people can interact with the shows that they're watching. And I think crypto, something like that is like consumers feel the need to use and download because it's so cool or so fun or so helpful and entertaining. But that is actually built on crypto rails somehow because it's tied to like agents or you need to transact using it. Something that looks like that, I have no idea what it looks like yet, but I imagine it'd be more entertainment focused than, because like right now in the US, people will argue, like I obviously am very bullish on stablecoins, but like anything like Venmo for stablecoins in the US, like people don't immediately, it's not like a big unlock for people because they're like, oh, it works already, right? It's only like if you go to emerging markets where they truly get it. But if you want true, like, you know, a lot of like cultural exports is still coming from the US. So I think if you want US consumers to use it, it'd be something probably entertainment focused. What do you think?
I think it's going to be something boring. I initially I thought it was going to be something, you know, exciting, like a you know, I don't know, art. I thought everyone was going to, it's like Instagram. I thought there was going to be people collecting NFT art as they have an Instagram, like showcasing their personality. And my thought process there was social media is very curated and shows like a, you know, kind of a picture of you, but not the full picture. And then what you own digitally, I thought was a very better insight or much better insight into someone's personality. So it's like, oh, Andrew's a gamer and he likes this artist because of these reasons. And, you know, these collectibles, he likes Pokemon or whatever. Right. And you could infer a lot from that person's own, like their assets, so to speak. And that was my thought process. And, you know, it's been, and maybe it's still very early. NFTs only really became a thing in 17, kind of 18, 19. And even that was still pretty early. I'd say 21 was kind of the majority, you know, or main moment for NFTs. But I think now it's going to be something kind of boring and under the radar and some simple, you know, a DeFi type of app where it's like, yeah, you earn some yield on your dollars in your bank account or whatever, right? Maybe it's Morpho. I don't know.
Let's hope.
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's but you know, we'll see. We'll be here, so we'll see. All right, Winnie, this has been amazing, but it's time for the closing questions. All right. First one. What trend is totally overhyped and what trend is underhyped?
Oh, wow. Overhyped and underhyped. Let's see. I think Bitcoin DeFi overhyped. And then underhyped, I think Telegram and people have kind of, it had its moment last year, but I do think it's time for like, there's going to be a resurgence because now with kind of the administration and kind of regulatory changes, I do think we're due for another wave of really cool Telegram apps. They have the distribution. I do think something there will be cool.
And you said overhyped was Bitcoin DeFi?
Yeah.
So you just think that you think Bitcoin should say Bitcoin and like we don't need a DeFi on top of Bitcoin because it's not the time for that.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. All right. Before launching your firm, and you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
I feel like the world changes on kind of, I mean, now on a daily basis, being open-minded, adapting to kind of what's new and always having a positive outlook on kind of where the world go. I think it's like you can't prepare for everything, right? Like you just got to like roll with it and make sure you work with the smartest people and people you love and everything else will kind of work out.
I love that. All right. You're not allowed to be an investor and you're not allowed to work in Web3. What would you be doing?
I'd be like an on-chain creator. I think.
No. So you're not allowed to be an investor or not allowed to work in Web3.
Oh, wow.
So you have to do something outside of the ecosystem.
Oh, I would start a D2C company with a very taboo product and hire some of the best marketing people to make it cool again. Like an example is kind of like what you know Starface, they did like acne, like pimple patches, and they add this whole like star thing and now it's all over Target. I would basically take something like lactate, which a lot of people are lactose intolerant, and it's like not cool to like, you know, be lactose intolerant and can't eat cheese. I would then build a very cool form factor with it, like make it like a strip, like a Listerine strip, and then slap on a good like marketing brand to it, and then never raise venture dollars and just kind of sell that on TikTok Shop.
That's amazing. That's so cool. It sounds like maybe you could have a little side gig going on.
No, I've been tinkering because like I'm Asian and I'm not lactose tolerant, but intolerant, but my husband is and a lot of my friends are, and it's like they always like bring these little lactate pills, and it's so embarrassing for them to eat at the restaurant because before we have pasta or pizza, they're always like gobbling it. And I'm like, guys, we need to make this more like cool and you know ubiquitous and like everyone's like sharing. It's like gum, you know. And I think it's just a branding thing.
That's awesome. Very, very cool insight there. That's awesome. All right. What is one piece of content, whether it be a blog, podcast, book, etc., that had a very big impact on you?
That's a good one. I really like, there's a podcast called Second Act, where they interview kind of founders on their second act, right? And I think people think careers are very linear and you kind of do one thing and then you kind of crush at it and you keep getting better and better. But the reality is like we reinvent ourselves so many times in a lifetime, and showing that people in their 60s can be content creators and have a whole new career ahead of them, or people who are changing from the military to, say, fashion. That might be a more of a hard pivot. But like, I think kind of showing that life is not one-dimensional and not like a very clear trajectory, that I really like that podcast series.
That's awesome. Okay, last one. What does success look like for you?
Ooh, I think it's being able to wake up every day, love what you do, work with people you love, and then also just like go home to your family and eat well. Like it's very simple. And it's really cheesy, but I truly think I'm very blessed because I love Thomas and Steven. They're my two partners. And it's very rare, I feel like, to work with two people you respect so deeply and you have such high trust with, and they're just like good people, high integrity. And I feel very lucky to have this opportunity to Strobe with them.
Amazing. Winnie, where can people find more about Strobe and connect with you?
Strobe, we are on strobe.fund, and connect with me on Twitter. I'm Winnie Lau X _.
Amazing. Thank you, Winnie.
And I'm also streaming on TikTok and Instagram. So all the platforms and Warpcast.
Awesome. Thank you, Winnie. Appreciate it.
So fun to be on. Thanks, Andrew.